I still remember the sound. Not the gunshot, but the thud when Harper's body hit the tiles. 1 second she was laughing with our kids. The next her eyes were wide open, glassy, staring right through me. And all I could think was, I promised her I'd left that life behind. Like the video, subscribe for more betrayal twists, and comment where you're watching from, your city or your country. I was behind the counter, wiping down the register like any slow Tuesday. The smell of coffee and cleaning spray hung around. Harper had texted me she'd stop by with the kids, just to say hi before heading to Grandma's. That's all it was supposed to be, 5 minutes of normal life. When the door chime rang, I looked up expecting her face. Instead, 3 men in ski masks rushed in. Their voices cracked with adrenaline. One shouted for the money, one waved a shotgun, the other stayed near the exit like he'd done this before. I froze, hands in the air. I'd stared down worse barrels before, in deserts where no one heard screams, but this was different. My family was here. Harper instinctively pulled our daughter behind her. I mouthed stay down, but she shook her head, still trying to protect me, even now. Then it happened. The smallest twitch, the wrong movement. One of them screamed, "Don't," but it was too late. The gun fired. I didn't hear the blast until after she fell. The world went silent. No sound, just a ringing in my ears. Blood pooled fast around her palm where she'd reached for our son. The robbers panicked. One dropped his weapon. One ran. The third, he stopped. He looked straight at me. And in that half second, I saw something I shouldn't have. A small tattoo on his wrist, shaped like a triangle cut through with a lightning bolt. My breath caught. That wasn't some random gang sign. That was Delta Tag, the mark of a covert ops squad I once served with. Before I could move, they were gone, tires screeching, leaving behind shattered glass, blood, and the sound of my son screaming for his mom. The cops came fast. Questions, flashes, the whole chaos of flashing blues painting her face like some cruel light show. One paramedic whispered there was still a heartbeat. Faint. I tried to follow, but a uniform pulled me back. They needed statements. I had training. They said I'd get my chance to talk later. By the time I made it to the hospital, she was gone. Time of death, the doctor started, but I didn't let him finish. I stood there in the hallway, my 2 kids asleep from exhaustion in the waiting room, my shirt still sticky with her blood. And then I saw it again. That image burned into my mind. The robber's wrist. The Delta symbol. That couldn't be random. No one outside that unit knew that sign. And that meant only one thing. Whoever killed my wife wasn't just a stranger. Later that night, when the store reopened for investigation, I went back alone. The floor was cordoned off with yellow tape. The smell of iron still hung in the air, blood and bleach together, like death trying to pretend it was gone. As I walked behind the counter, my eyes caught something small near the baseboard, a single brass casing that the cleanup missed. I knelt down, gloved my hand, and turned it over slowly between my fingers. There it was, etched faintly along the rim, the same Delta unit engraving. My old unit. A mark only issued to those given classified ammo for covert work. My breath grew shallow. I'd buried that part of me for good. Changed names. Left the brotherhood that taught me to kill quietly and live like a ghost. But ghosts never die easy. They wait. They watch. And when they return, they take everything. That night, when I tucked my kids in, I told them Mom was watching over them somewhere peaceful. But inside, I knew the truth. She didn't die because of a random robbery. Someone sent them. Someone from my past. And whatever peace I'd built since leaving Delta just bled out with her on that floor. The night after Harper's funeral, the world felt colorless. The house still smelled like her perfume, faint traces on the couch where she used to read to the kids before bed. I turned on every light, even though the place still felt dark. Grief does that. It bends light, twists sound, makes time drag like it's testing how far you can stretch before you snap. The crime scene tape had come down that morning. The store looked normal again to everyone else, but I kept seeing her hand on that cold floor. The police report said armed robbery gone wrong. A clean explanation for a messy truth. My gut knew better. I'd seen discipline in those men, too precise for drug-addled thieves. And that symbol engraved on the shell casing kept flashing in my head. I'd seen it years ago, in dust-blown countries where orders came coded and losses went uncounted. The lightning-cut triangle, Delta's covert mark. We weren't supposed to use it anywhere off-record, which meant whoever did it deliberately. A silent signature. By midnight, I sat at my desk with an old notebook I'd sworn I'd never open again. Every page was filled with call signs, mission times, and names I hadn't spoken in a decade. I thumbed through until I saw it. Hunter Cole. Back then he was my shadow, loud, brilliant, dangerous. The kind of soldier who didn't believe wars ended when you came home. Last I heard, he'd been dishonorably discharged after a weapons theft inquiry. He disappeared right after. And if that casing was Delta issued, there was only one place it could have come from. Someone with access to stolen stockpile gear. I needed proof. At dawn I drove back to the convenience store while the city still slept. The window had been replaced, the floor scrubbed 3 times, but the smell of gunpowder clung to air vents no bleach could reach. I kept low, flashlight beams sweeping edges of the counter. Behind the stack of cartons near the freezer, I found a piece of torn fabric, rough tactical material, not the cheap cotton mask cops collected earlier. I bagged it, dusted it lightly. Embedded grit showed traces of desert sand. Specific hue I recognized instantly. Kandahar dust. No way ordinary robbers had that embedded in their gear. I went straight home and logged into a restricted veteran network, quiet backdoor we used for job placements. I posted a vague inquiry under a false ID about surplus Delta ammunition on the black market. Within 3 hours, a private ping hit my inbox. Still flows west. Ask about Route 7. And don't use your real name. Underneath was an encrypted coordinate and a timestamp. Whoever sent it knew me. Route 7 had been our extraction phrase during field missions. My throat tightened. Harper once overheard that phrase years ago. She joked it sounded like a spy movie thing. Now it showed up a week after her death. I called the detective assigned to us, Daphne Reed. She sounded tired, almost cautious. Said the department had nothing new, but warned me not to act on my own. Her tone tried to sound official, but I could tell she already knew I would. Ex-soldiers don't wait for paperwork. We move when instincts start screaming. That evening, I sat outside on the back steps watching my kids play with candle wax in small jars. It should have been comforting, but all I saw was loneliness stretching out in years. I whispered promises they couldn't hear, that their mother's death would mean something, that truth would surface without me turning into the monster I used to be. Inside, I reopened Harper's phone. One unsaved contact kept catching my eye. Just 3 letters, HMK. Message history was empty, but one audio file sat locked. I tried running recovery software. The file reappeared with part of a timestamp from the day before the shooting. When I played it, static filled the first 10 seconds. Then Harper's voice cracked through. I told you, I won't help you hide this anymore. He deserves to know the truth. If you come near my kids again, the rest cut out. The silence that followed felt louder than the recording. She'd been terrified. And whoever she was talking to, she knew them well enough to argue. I backed the file up, encrypted it, and sent a copy to an old friend, Victor Ross, former intel analyst who'd owed me favors since we covered each other's names on classified missions. Within an hour, he messaged, "That voice modulation in background isn't random environment noise. Someone else recorded her on a secure line. I can trace the signal path if you buy me 48 hours. I stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard before typing, "Do it." Sleep never came that night. Memories of Harper ran like film reels, her humming near the kitchen sink, her telling me she never liked secrets between us, her fear before I left the service. Every memory carried a question buried inside it. How much did she really know before she died? By morning, Victor called. He'd tracked the audio metadata to an abandoned storage facility outside town. The same coordinates labeled on that encrypted Route 7 message. My gut clenched. Too neat to be coincidence. I loaded my old field gear. Nothing lethal, just flashlights, gloves, small camera, and a knife I kept for utility. The drive there cut through dull industrial blocks. Rusted signs squealed in the wind. The place looked dead, windows broken, chain link gate half ajar. But tire tracks in the dirt were fresh. Inside, moss crept along the concrete, and broken lockers stank of oil. I moved slow, careful not to disturb prints. On the floor in one corner, faint footprints circled a pile of ashes. Something metallic glittered within it, a burnt mobile device crushed flat. I picked it up with tweezers. A melted SIM card still held enough number sequence visible for Victor to trace later. As I turned toward the exit, my flashlight cut across the wall and froze. Someone had carved words into the paint, uneven but deliberate. Route 7 never ends. A chill crawled up my spine. That wasn't a message for random scavengers. That was personal. Hunter's exact phrase from one of our last missions overseas said the night he disappeared into desert blackout. Back in the truck, I stared at the carved words through the windshield reflection. The scar on my shoulder, the one he patched years ago after I took shrapnel, pulsed as though memory itself hurt. Maybe this was punishment. Maybe karma had finally found home through someone else's gun. When I made it home before dawn, kids still asleep on the couch, the house looked peaceful again. The kind of peace that felt borrowed. I poured coffee and stared out the window as the sky began to brighten. Somewhere between night and morning, I finally admitted it to myself. This wasn't over. Harper had walked into something meant for me, something born from the dirt I never fully washed off. I pulled the casing from the evidence bag once more, rolled it between my fingers, and whispered the name that wouldn't leave my throat. Hunter. The word felt heavier than grief, heavier than vengeance. It felt like a door unlocking somewhere I'd sworn shut forever. Days kept blurring together after I read that carved message, Route 7 never ends. I'd replayed it in my head so many times, it started to sound like prophecy. The more I thought about those words, the more I realized Harper hadn't died in a robbery. She'd been silenced. Someone wanted what she found to disappear, and the easiest way was to cut through the heart that kept me steady. Victor called that afternoon. He'd recovered fragments from the melted SIM card. One registered number traced back to a prepaid phone activated under a fake name, Hunter Cole. The signal had pinged just 10 miles from my store 2 nights before the shooting. That detail sealed it. Hunter was still alive, still moving, and operating close. I had 2 choices. Hand everything to Detective Daphne and let bureaucracy bury it, or move quietly and make sure truth saw daylight. I already knew which road an ex-Delta takes when family's involved. Before I left the kids with Harper's sister Ivy, I told her only that I needed closure. She didn't push for details. Her eyes said she already guessed closure didn't mean forgiveness. I met Victor in person for the first time in years. He pulled up in the same dented SUV he'd driven since discharge. We parked 2 blocks from a rundown motel where the prepaid phone last pinged. We sat watching the narrow corridors from across the street. A man in a hoodie came out, mulled around the trash bins, looked over both shoulders. Even from a distance, I felt it, the particular way trained men scan perimeters. Not random, not junkie behavior. When he turned his wrist to light a cigarette, the faint mark flashed again, a lightning bolt bisecting a triangle. The same tattoo. My body tensed. I stepped out of the car. Victor hissed that we needed backup. I ignored him. My boots hit gravel, loud enough for the man to notice. He froze, hand near his waistband. Easy, I said, keeping my voice calm. I'm not here to kill you. He hesitated, gauging me. You shouldn't be here, Logan. Hearing my name from his mouth cracked open 10 years of memory. Beneath the hood, I recognized him. Colin Baird, our youngest Delta member, barely 20 when deployment ended. What the hell happened at Route 7? I asked. His eyes darted away. It was supposed to be a warehouse scare. Insurance hit, quick exit. They said no one would be hurt. I didn't know. I stepped closer. Harper was shot in front of our kids. Tell me who ordered it. Colin's hands shook. It wasn't me. I tried to stop it. Hunter planned the hit. Said you owed him. Said she found documents about the weapons routes you shut down. He reached into his pocket, and I stiffened. But instead of a gun, he pulled out a flash drive taped in plastic. He pushed it against my chest. Emails. Payment records. Hunter running shipments with someone named Morgan. Your wife discovered it. That's why they came. Before I could ask more, tires screeched from the corner lot. A dark SUV rolled in fast. Doors flew open. Muzzle flash sparkled. Gunfire tore through the quiet night. Colin dropped instantly, hit before he could turn. I ducked behind the dumpster, glass spraying overhead. Victor dragged me back into the SUV, hit the gas before they circled back. In the rear view, I caught the last image of Colin sprawled on the pavement. The only man who tried to talk silenced the second he did. Half an hour later, we hid in an abandoned car wash lot. Engine off, both of us breathing in chemical air. Victor broke the silence first. You realize whoever these people are, they're still military trained. You can't handle this alone anymore. They killed Harper, I said. Handling it is all that's left. He nodded, no argument left in him, and handed me his spare encrypted laptop. Then use this. Decode what's inside that drive. But remember one thing. Whatever you'll find, it won't bring peace. I drove home on empty streets, headlights sweeping across silent houses. The flash drive weighed more than the gun in my glove box. Inside, the kids were asleep. Ivy had dozed off on the couch, TV flickering soft news coverage about another city crime. I muted it and sat at the dining table, laptop open, drive plugged in. A folder appeared, Delta Inventory Logs. Beneath it, a secondary folder labeled DGD. My stomach twisted when I realized what those initials likely meant. Delta gone dark, the same words Harper had left hidden in her office drawer. I hovered over the file name, breath locked in my chest, and double-clicked. Rows of numbers, financial entries, weapon serials, all transferred through offshore accounts. But one entry stopped me cold. A signed approval marked Morgan Caldwell, corporate logistics consultant. Harper's old friend. She'd visited our house a dozen times, smiling at my kids, bringing food after deployments. And another note beside it said, contact confirmed via HMK link. Harper's mysterious phone file. The entire puzzle suddenly fit. Harper found proof her friend was laundering military weapons through fake civilian routes. She confronted her, and Morgan called Hunter to shut her up permanently. I closed the laptop slowly, every nerve screaming both fury and disbelief. Betrayal had a new face, one that smiled at my table for years. The next morning before sunrise, I drove past Morgan's suburban glass office. Security lights blinked behind mirrored windows. I sat in the car for 15 silent minutes, staring, wondering how someone could eat your food, call your children family, and still orchestrate their mother's death. Inside me, the soldier I buried started waking up, not for war, but for truth. I didn't need violence to destroy them. I just needed their own secrets to speak. And somewhere deep down, I could almost hear Harper's voice. Expose them, don't become them. I whispered back into the empty dawn. I promise. Morning light had barely touched the rooftops when the anonymous text arrived. You want the full truth? Come alone tonight. Building 47, Harbor District, 11 p.m. Leave your phone. No name. No trace. Just like the missions we used to run. I knew what it meant. Someone wanted to control the story. Maybe trap me into silence. But the difference this time was that I had nothing left to lose. I printed copies of the evidence from the flash drive, hid one set with IV sealed inside a bank envelope labeled for Daphne Reed. If I didn't return, she'd know where to start. By 11 that night, fog drifted thick around the docks. The old warehouses looked half collapsed, steel ribs jutting into shadows. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the last stretch, boots silent on damp concrete. Every sound felt magnified, water dripping, a cable creaking overhead, metal doors rattling in wind. Inside, the air smelled of salt and oil. My flashlight swept over abandoned crates until a faint ring vibrated in the dark. A cheap flip phone sat on a crate, buzzing like it had been waiting for me. I flipped it open. A disguised voice came through, roughened by modulation. "You always were predictable, Logan." The tone made my stomach drop. "Hunter." I didn't speak. Years of training told me silence disarms faster than words. He continued, "You shouldn't drag kids into what grown men started." Harper made a choice. She knew too much. My jaw tightened. "You killed her." "She killed herself when she tried to expose us," he snapped. "And you, old friend, should remember the code. Delta first, truth later." The line went dead. Something scraped behind me. Quick, light, deliberate. Before I turned fully, a hooded figure struck. We hit the floor hard, rolling across shards of broken glass. I caught his wrist, twisted, slammed him onto the concrete. Before I could identify him, he swung a metal rod, cutting a shallow line across my cheek. Then, headlights blasted through the doorway, a van roaring closer. Instinct took over. I shoved the attacker aside, sprinted through a side corridor, and dived behind a stack of crates as gunfire ripped across the room. Splinters flew past my face, smell of burning rubber mixed with diesel. I crawled toward the exit, catching a glimpse of the attacker sprinting toward the van. Hunter's voice called again from the dash phone, echoing aloud this time. "Next time, don't bring your conscience. It slows you down." The van screeched away, tires spraying mud, leaving silence behind. My hands trembled slightly, not fear, but the kind of adrenaline that used to surge before firefights. I dodged more than bullets tonight. Whoever sent that message wanted to erase me like they erased Harper and Colin. I scanned the ground again before leaving. Near where the phone had rung, something glinted, a small flash drive in a crushed metal case. A single letter scratched onto it. H. Back home. Victor ran forensics before sunrise. The new drive contained video, grainy, time-stamped 3 days before Harper's death. In the clip, Harper stood in my store's stockroom, arguing with a man whose face was half-shadowed. His voice matched Hunter's unmodulated tone exactly. Harper's words bled through static. "You promised it was over, Hunter. You said no one else would be hurt." He leaned closer to her, voice colder. "And you promised not to tell Logan what we did overseas. Some promises don't survive peacetime." Static swallowed the rest, then the feed cut out. Victor exhaled slowly. "She wasn't collateral, Logan. She was leverage." I couldn't answer. Every piece of emotion knotted inside my chest. Grief, guilt, rage, all tangled in the question that wouldn't go away. If Harper confronted Hunter, why the robbery setup? Why stage it as random? Victor pointed at remaining data fragments. "There's another transfer entry, time-stamped minutes before the footage. Payment from an account labeled Caldwell Logistics. That's Morgan's company." Everything circled back. Morgan supplied the weapons. Hunter executed control. Harper intervened, and I was supposed to live quietly with a false story. I stared out the window, morning light cutting through blinds like bars. The city outside didn't care about one dead woman or one broken family. But I cared. Enough to see it through without turning into what they were. Later that day, I met Detective Daphne at a cafe near precinct headquarters. I slid an unmarked envelope across the table. Photos, timestamp reports, partial transcripts. She looked surprised, but kept her composure. "You sure you want to hand this over?" she asked. "Once it's official, there's no undoing what comes next." "That's the plan," I said. "If you hear nothing from me in 72 hours, unseal everything." Her eyes hardened the way soldiers' eyes do before missions they don't expect to survive. "Be careful, Logan. You're not the only one watching." That night, I replaced the bandage on my cheek and stared at my reflection, Tired, bleeding, but alive. For the first time since Harper's death, clarity cut through grief. This wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about exposure. Quiet justice. And to finish it, I'd need to walk straight into the same darkness I'd spent 10 years avoiding. I couldn't stop replaying Harper's voice from the recovered footage. Even through distortion, the fear in her tone was real, not fear of dying, but fear for what her truth might cost us. That kind of fear doesn't come from strangers. It comes from someone who trusted the wrong person too long. Victor spent the next day decoding fragments of the corrupted files. Out of every line of numbers, one file stood out, an address list hidden under weapon codes. It matched ports from where illegal shipments left under humanitarian tags. The last transfer happened the day before Harper was murdered. Destination, Caldwell Distribution, Seattle. Morgan's company again. Every path carved back to her. While Victor scrubbed encryption layers, I visited Detective Daphne. We met at the park instead of her office. Fewer eyes. She'd already pulled registered storage contracts under Caldwell's name. Their third warehouse matches the property near Route 7, she said quietly. But internal affairs flagged me for accessing it. Someone hired just shut it all down. That confirmed it. Hunter and Morgan still had friends inside law enforcement. The system that should protect people like Harper was stacking itself in silence. Keep your distance, I told her. They're still watching you. I already am being watched, she muttered, eyes scanning horizons. Then softer. You can't do this alone forever, Logan. Find a way that doesn't end with another body on a floor. If she only knew how often those floors replayed in my sleep. That evening, Victor called with news that made my stomach drop. Harper left a hidden backup on her email cloud, same alias tied to Delta. I cracked it, labeled Delta Gone Dark. I met him within the hour. His laptop screen lit our faces in the dim garage. Inside the file were scanned letters addressed to a federal judge named Preston Vance, a man who'd once prosecuted black budget operations before retiring quietly. Harper had reached out to him, offering testimony and evidence. One message from Preston's office even highlighted a scheduled meeting that never happened, scheduled for 2 days after she died. The dates aligned too perfectly. She was silenced before she could speak. A hot wave of nausea hit me. My hands curled into fists until the knuckles cracked. Harper had been trying to clear me, to protect our name after years of classified shadows. Instead, she stepped into the crosshairs meant for me. Victor placed a steady hand on my shoulder. If you can reach Preston himself, maybe he still has copies. He's off-grid now, but I can try. Do it, I said quietly. Whatever it takes. While Victor searched, I sat alone near the workbench scanning one of Harper's letters. Her handwriting froze me. Even in digital ink, I could feel her tone, deliberate, strong, careful, but full of love. If anything happens to me, it means the ghosts didn't stay buried. Promise me, Logan, you'll look for truth, not revenge. I read that line 3 times, trying not to unravel. All these years, I thought my silence protected her. Now I realized it only kept her blind to dangers circling closer. 2 nights later, Victor tracked Preston's location, a coastal town north of Seattle. Retired, living in quiet isolation. I made the drive, road curving through mist-covered pines as if even daylight didn't want to intrude. Preston opened the door before I knocked. Age had carved sharp lines across his face, but his eyes cut clear, the kind of calm earned by men who've seen too much. "You're Logan Hale," he said, not asking but stating. "Come in. She told me you might one day need answers." Inside his cabin, boxes of unsent letters filled a shelf. He poured coffee without small talk. "Harper reached out 6 weeks before she died," he said. "She mailed partial files, said the rest were secured with someone she trusted. She never said it was you, but I suspected." He opened a drawer, slid forward an envelope sealed in wax. "This came 3 days after after. No return address, but handwriting matched hers. Inside was a memo about a list of operatives moving black shipments under corporate fronts. I kept it off-grid. I unfolded the paper carefully. At the bottom of the list, two names underlined, Hunter Cole and Morgan Caldwell. Beside them, an unfamiliar one, Julian Hasker, labeled Department Oversight. A government liaison. That explained why Daphne's access got shut down. Preston leaned forward. If you expose these names, they'll erase you. She asked me to make sure you understood that. She also asked for truth, I murmured. He gave a slow nod. Then you'd better be ready to finish what she started. He slid a sealed USB drive across the table. This one copies every document I held back. Once you open it, there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. On the drive back, the rain hit like gravel, wipers struggling. Part of me wanted to drive until the road ran out, to leave everything buried. But Harper's memory wouldn't let me. She'd stood alone for truth, prepared to die for it. The least I could do was lie for the same reason. By the time I reached home, another storm crashed through. Thunder rolled across the lake beyond our backyard. The kids slept. I poured whiskey I didn't want, sat by the window, USB resting on my palm. I plugged it into the laptop. A single file opened, time-stamped video from Preston's archives. Harper sat in his old office, recorded from his desk camera. Her expression was calm, but weighted. If you're seeing this, it means things got bad. There's more at stake than anyone knows. The people behind Delta Gone Dark turned something meant to protect into something that profits from fear. Static cracked in the feed, her voice fading before finishing her final sentence. Her eyes locked at the camera one last time. Logan, don't let them rewrite this. The video froze there, her mid-blink, her expression peaceful and resolute. For the first time, I understood the depth of her courage. I shut the laptop and whispered into the dim room. You didn't die for nothing. Outside, lightning flashed over the lake, and for a second it looked like daylight, clear, blinding, and honest. Tomorrow, I'd begin forming the trap that would bring every one of her killers into the open. The storm outside lasted all night. Rain hammered against the glass like it was trying to wash away what was about to happen. By morning, every decision had already settled in my mind. No turning back, no hesitation left. Harper's video stripped the last piece of doubt from me. I spent the early hours studying the drive Preston gave me. Every document linked calm corporate words with coded military transactions, security stock, private relief shipments, training consultancy. All were covers for weapon exchanges. The operation's heartbeat ran straight through Caldwell Logistics, Hunter's black market wing, and their protector in government, Julian Hasker. The deeper I read, the more it felt like rereading old war files. Different field, same corruption. What haunted me most wasn't the scale, but Harper's name appearing in call logs as consultant, disclosure risk. She wasn't collateral, she was cataloged as a liability. A note beside her name. Eliminate before trial confirmation. Something cold and final cracked inside me. Around noon, Daphne texted. Internal Affairs pulled me off the Caldwell lead. Hasker's office issued an ethics suspension. I knew immediately what it meant. He'd closed the loop. They were protecting themselves from inside out. I called Victor. Any luck tracing where Hunter's network still moves? He exhaled on the line. Yeah. One of the last shipments left through a shadow terminal just outside town. Hunter's name doesn't appear, but it's his route. There's still chatter. They call the site the graveyard. That name brought a sour taste. During Delta days, graveyard meant an off-grid storage site for untraceable supplies used during insurgency. If they still used that term, it meant Hunter revived our old operations under a new disguise. I drove out that night to see it for myself. The road twisted between industrial ruins and half-broken fences. The air smelled of burnt oil and rain. The warehouse sat near the edge of the docks, quiet, lights dimmed. I parked behind a stack of freights and watched. Through binoculars, movement flickered, 2 guards, armed. Civilian clothes, but Delta stance. Controlled breath, synchronized sweeps. checking corners like clockwork. My stomach nodded. Those weren't criminals improvising guard duty. Those were trained soldiers. Then I noticed a woman exit the main door, umbrella sharp against rain. Morgan Caldwell. I hadn't seen her since Harper's funeral. When she told me, through tears, she was like my sister. Now she walked among gun runners like command came naturally to her. Two men followed her to an SUV. Even through distance, the confidence in her stride chilled me. I clicked a few photos and backed away into the fog. This wasn't the moment to strike. Not yet. The next morning, I met Victor again in the garage. He analyzed the photos and nodded slowly. Hunter had contacts, but Morgan has the funding. Separate them, and both fall. Before leaving, I slipped into Harper's office, untouched since the night of the shooting. Dust clung to air like frozen time. I sat in her chair, ran my hand over her notebooks, and found one detail that tightened everything together. In the corner of a scribble, she'd written two coordinates underlined twice: 48.72 N, 122.51 W. When I looked them up, it matched a retired military testing range, the same one Delta once used for demolition training. The words next to coordinates read, "They buried proof here." I stared until letters blurred. Proof of what? My only guess. Ammo crates, logs, maybe evidence connecting military supply to corporate export. If I could recover what she marked, I could expose the entire chain. By sundown, I loaded gear, camera, gloves, shovel, flashlight. Victor tried to come, but I refused. If I don't come back, I told him, be ready to release everything. The old testing range lay silent, overgrown with weeds and broken fences. I followed Harper's markings from map coordinates, counting paces until ground tilted near a collapsed bunker. When flashlight beams brushed the dirt, metal edges gleamed faintly below. I dropped to my knees, dug with gloved hands. Within minutes, my fingers struck metal. A sealed container emerged, military-grade latch still intact. Sweat mixed with mud as I forced it open. Inside were ledgers printed with Delta insignia, shipping manifests signed by Hunter and Hasker both. Each page detailed transactions disguised as foreign aid, weapon shipments rerouted through Morgan's network. And there, stapled to one record, Harper's access badge covered in dried soil. She found this place. She left the evidence here in case she didn't survive. Lightning flashed overhead as rain started again. For a moment, I knelt beside the open crate, breathing in the mixture of rain and gun oil. "You did it, Harper," I whispered. "Now I'll finish it." The drive back was tense. I kept glancing in the mirror. An unmarked sedan followed too long before peeling off near downtown. Paranoia or warning? Hard to tell. Inside Victor's lab, we photographed every page, encrypted each file, and backed it to multiple servers. He looked pale, reading the manifests. "This isn't just smuggling," he said. "This connects politicians, private militaries, half the city council. If you publish this, they'll come after you before daylight. Then I'll release it when it hurts them most." He shook his head, but didn't argue. "What's next? Deliver a taste. Make them panic. When powerful men start fearing exposure, they make mistakes." That night, I sat outside with the kids asleep upstairs. The rain had slowed to drizzle. I opened the last letter Harper ever wrote, filed inside the same notebook. Some battles aren't won with guns. They're won when the truth outlives the lies. Her handwriting ended mid-sentence as if she'd been interrupted. Flashlight beams flickered beyond the trees. My chest tightened. I turned everything off and watched through the curtains. Two men at the edge of the yard, scanning the house quietly before slipping away. No headlights, no sound. Hunter's shadow again, reminding me he was still close. I locked the door, slid Harper's badge into my wallet, and whispered to the empty room, "You'll see justice soon." Tomorrow, I'd take her proof straight to Preston, so the truth couldn't die with me. Preston didn't answer when I called the next morning. By noon, Victor confirmed my fear. His line had gone dead, phone disabled overnight. One look from Victor told me we both knew what that meant. Hunter's circle had moved faster than us, but they hadn't erased everything. The data we pulled from Harper's crate was backed up and hidden, enough to keep the truth alive even if I didn't make it through what came next. While combing through the shipment ledgers again, Victor spotted one anomaly, an out-of-sequence signature beside Hunter's name. It belonged to someone else from our Delta team, a soldier named Colin Baird, the same young man who'd once hesitated during our missions, always questioning orders. We thought he'd been killed years ago in a transport accident. But if his signature appeared on recent manifests, that meant he was alive, and maybe part of the operation now. Or maybe he's being used, Victor suggested. If he's signing papers under duress, he could be the weak link. That thought became my next move. I traced Colin's paper trail to a half-abandoned motel complex 40 minutes outside the city. Same name pattern the network used for temporary contacts. I parked 3 blocks away, cut power to my phone, and moved through the rain-slick alley silently. Through a cracked door, a faint light flickered. Grime coated every surface. The smell of stale smoke clung to the air. I heard coughing behind one of the doors and nudged it open. Colin sat on the bed, thinner than memory. I sunk in, a handgun resting beside his knee. He didn't reach for it. He just looked up, recognition struggling through shame. "You're supposed to be dead," he murmured. "I've been supposed to be a lot of things," I said quietly, scanning the room. He motioned to the weapon. "If you came here to kill me, go ahead. Might save me from them." I came for answers. Colin stared at his hands. "You want answers, fine. The robbery, that wasn't supposed to kill anyone. Morgan told Hunter to scare you. Make you feel heat so you'd back off the old Delta files. But Harper walked in, and Hunter panicked. He thought exposure was seconds away. I tried to stop him. His voice cracked. That's why I fired toward the floor, not at her. She fell anyway. Ricochet. I stayed still, jaw tight. You were there?" He nodded weakly. "Not masked. I handled the door, didn't expect her and the kids. You think I sleep since that night? Every time I close my eyes, I hear your son screaming." Silence filled the space until wind pushed the curtain against the wall like a restless ghost. I finally asked, "Why stay alive for them? You could have disappeared. They said if I ran, they'd feed my sister to the same grave Harper got. So I signed whatever they wanted and waited for someone to end it." He tossed a small bag onto the floor. Inside, flash drives, old IDs, bank slips. Evidence he'd collected quietly against them. "They don't know I kept copies," he whispered. "You're the only one who can still burn this down." Before I could reply, Victor's voice cracked through my earpiece. "Logan, get out now. The network just pinged local relay towers. They traced your car. Too late." Headlights flared through the broken blinds. Engines roared outside. Colin grabbed his gun, but I knocked his wrist away as bullets shredded the motel wall. We hit the floor. Plaster and glass rained down. I pulled him toward the back exit while rounds smashed through the hallway. Outside, we dove behind a dumpster as a dark SUV stopped near the entrance. Colin coughed blood. A bullet had caught his shoulder. He groaned, voice trembling. "Hunter's not the boss anymore. Morgan calls the shots now. She's using his name. He's just her weapon." He pressed the bag into my chest. "Use it. End her before she kills more." Then he slid against the metal and went still, eyes dimming. He had hesitated again, this time between running and redemption, and he'd chosen the latter. I fired 2 shots at the SUV's tires. It spun, screeching. I grabbed the evidence and sprinted into the adjacent industrial yard. Adrenaline drowned pain as metal catwalks and dripping pipes blurred past. By the time I reached my car, Victor's voice returned. "Are you alive?" "Barely," I said, breath ragged. "Colin's gone. But he gave me proof Morgan's at the top now. She runs everything." Victor swore under his breath. "Then the next move's hers. Be ready." As I drove back through the night, I kept seeing Colin's face, the regret in it, the relief of letting go. Another name on the list of people who died because of secrets buried for profit. At home, I placed his evidence beside Harper's crate. Together, they painted a perfect picture of betrayal, one that stretched from an empty desert battlefield to corporate boardrooms wearing charity smiles. I looked out the window again toward the dark horizon. Somewhere beyond that line, Morgan was still moving pieces, thinking she'd buried every witness. She didn't know Harper left more than evidence behind. She left willpower in the people she loved. I whispered to the quiet house, "This ends soon." And finally, as thunder rolled again in the distance, I felt that strange calm soldiers get right before an operation, the silence between breath and fire. I buried Colin at dawn behind an empty churchyard on the outskirts of town. No headstone, just quiet soil and the sound of morning insects. He'd earned at least that much peace. By the time I got home, the kids were waking, sunlight spilling through their curtains like a reminder of what still mattered. I packed their clothes while Ivy pretended not to know why. She finally asked, "How long will you be gone?" "Until it's safe," I said. "Keep the doors locked, stay off social media, and answer only my calls from this satellite phone." She didn't argue. The look in my eyes must have told her the truth, that whatever I was about to finish, it wasn't reversible. Victor and I spent the day combing through Colin's bag. It held everything we needed: Morgan's bank transfers, Hunter's fake passports, audio clips of phone calls labeled by date. Each clip was short, coded, efficient. But one froze us both. Morgan's voice: "Take care of Reed and Vance. If they talk, wrap it as an accident." Reed meant Detective Daphne. Vance meant Judge Preston. They had already silenced both within 24 hours. My stomach twisted as I realized how predictable they believed I'd be next on the list. I watched the window reflection of Victor's face behind me. "They won't stop with me," I said. "They'll go for Ivy and the kids next." He nodded grimly. "Then you draw them out before they get that far." We planned fast, simple. Expose enough of Morgan's network online to panic their investors, force her to respond personally. Once she reached out, I'd use recording proof to drag her into open accountability. We uploaded fragments of Delta Gone Dark's ledgers to an anonymous leak site, small doses that wouldn't get buried. Within hours, the data started spreading. News stations sniffed smoke even if they couldn't find fire. By evening, my burner phone rang. A calm female voice. "That's quite a stunt, Logan. But making noise never ends well for ghosts like you." "Morgan," I said, recognizing the tone. "I preferred when you worked quietly behind counters selling sodas. It suited you, safe, invisible. You killed a woman who trusted you." "I eliminated a risk," she corrected smoothly. "Hunter was right about one thing. You still believe the world can tell right from wrong. That's adorable." The line clicked off before I could answer. Hours later, my security cameras blinked offline one by one. Static crawled across every feed. I grabbed the kids, carried them silently to the car Ivy had hidden behind the shed. We drove through back routes until trees swallowed the road. At an old friend's cabin near the ridge, I handed Ivy the keys. "Stay until I call." Her voice broke. "Logan, what if you don't? Then you burn the flash drives. Never let them reach the kids." I stood by the road watching their taillights fade, every beat of that engine sound drilling deeper than any mission farewell. I wasn't fighting for vengeance anymore. I was fighting for what little still belonged to the word family. Back at Victor's garage, I found him scanning radio frequencies for Delta chatter. He looked up, pale. "They know the leak came from me. 2 hours ago someone tried to breach my firewall from a government node. Then we ended tonight." He swallowed hard. "How?" "Hunter wants redemption. Morgan wants control. They'll both come for me if they think the files go public at midnight." I slid a pre-recorded announcement onto the laptop. We set a timer for upload. "They intercept me before midnight thinking they can stop it. You stay hidden and trigger manual release if I don't check in." Victor stared, knowing what I meant. "That's not a plan. That's bait. It's all I've got." At 10 p.m., I sent Morgan a message through her corporate server. 3 words only. "Meet me Harbor District." The same warehouse where Harper died. Poetic or suicidal, maybe both. Rain returned as if the sky couldn't stand watching quietly. I parked under the same flickering lamp post from that first night. The warehouse door groaned open. Echo of my footsteps rolled through the emptiness. Hunter was there, older now, edges ragged, the kind of man who's lived too long in half-truths. Morgan stood beside him, her face calm, hair pinned like she'd just stepped out of a board meeting rather than a graveyard of memories. "You should have stayed quiet," she said softly. "You had everything, family, peace. All you had to do was let the world forget what Delta did." I faced her. "Harper tried forgiving people like you. Look what it cost her." Hunter's jaw tightened, voice hoarse. "She shouldn't have been part of it." "She was part of it," Morgan cut in sharply. "You let emotion cloud judgment. That's why you both failed." Their words blurred into background noise as I pressed record on the hidden mic beneath my jacket. She was giving me exactly what I came for, confession laced with arrogance. "Where's the data?" Morgan asked coldly. "In the hands of everyone who deserves to see it." For the first time, Hunter hesitated, eyes flickering with something human, regret maybe. "You should go, Logan." "She won't stop at threatening." Morgan's glare sliced through him. "You disappoint me again." The faint metallic click behind me told me she wasn't bluffing, a sniper's safety disengaging. I didn't move. "If I die, the upload goes live anyway." Her smile faltered. "You wouldn't risk your kid's safety for pride." "Watch me." Outside, thunder rolled again, while somewhere in Victor's garage a countdown ticked closer to midnight. The next minute decided everything: truth, justice, or another body on a warehouse floor. The wind howled through the broken skylight, throwing rain in diagonal streaks across the warehouse. Every nerve in me tightened. Morgan stood almost perfectly still, her voice low, controlled. "Walk away, Logan. You release those files, you'll burn half the city, including names that never meant you harm." "That's the point," I said. "Exposure doesn't choose favorites." Hunter shifted behind her, shoulders tense, rifle still lowered. His eyes flicked toward me once, like he was asking silently to end it before it got worse. I didn't look away. "You owe her," I said to him. "She died because you listened to her." Morgan barked a bitter laugh. "He listened to survival, same as you. You think this is about vengeance." Rain thundered harder outside. Hunter's finger hovered near the trigger, but didn't press. His body language said he wasn't here by choice. "Why run Morgan's errands?" I pressed. "You were better than this." "Don't pretend you know me now," he muttered. "I know a man who patched my shoulder while bullets flew, who risked everything for a principle. That man's still buried in there somewhere." For a heartbeat, he said nothing. Then slowly, he lowered the rifle. Morgan turned sharp toward him. "What are you doing?" He took a step toward me. "She's done enough damage," he said quietly. "This started as clean ops, containment, profit, quiet retirements. Then she turned it into murder." Her voice sliced the air. "You think you're free already?" She reached inside her coat. Reflex made me dive sideways. A flash, a shot. Hunter staggered backward, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He fell to one knee, gun sliding away. I grabbed the dropped rifle, rolled behind a crate, fired one clean shot toward the catwalk light. Sparks showered the dark. The sniper's beam jerked upward. Another shot pinged metal and went wide. I crawled across the wet floor toward Hunter. He gurgled something between breaths. "She burned." "Delta, stay still," I said automatically, although his pulse was fading. "You finish it." His voice was barely sound. Truth, not blood. Then he went still. Morgan's heels clicked behind boxes, growing closer. "Come again." "Always calm." "You never understood the job, Logan," she said, voice echoing. "We stabilized chaos. Governments begged for plausible deniability. Harper wanted purity in a business built on necessity." I stood quietly behind the crate, recording still running. "Call it what you want. It's murder when profit looks like patriotism." I stepped out just enough to keep aim steady. "You orchestrated her death, Morgan." Say it. She gave a weary look, maybe realizing her empire was already shaken. Fine, she said softly. I ordered it. She wouldn't back down. You happy now? Her words clicked in the recorder. Proof enough for everything. Outside, sirens started wailing. Victor's timing. The broadcast timer must have hit 0. Files autoploded. Morgan turned toward the sound, panic finally cracking her composure for the first time. You think you win by going public? She hissed. They'll bury it, same way they buried you. Maybe, I said. But now they'll have to dig through daylight to do it. Gunfire broke from the far end as DEA units stormed through the doors, Daphne's colleagues. Following the evidence chain I'd left with Victor. Morgan dropped her weapon, eyes scanning for an exit like someone watching her own crown collapse. She whispered as they cuffed her, You'll still lose them. Your kids. No one walks away from ghosts. I looked at Hunter's body, then at her. The difference between ghosts and survivors? I murmured. Survivors write the story. When they dragged her outside into flashing lights, I finally let myself breathe. Harper's photo from my wallet slipped loose, wet now, edges torn, face blurred, but eyes still bright. I whispered into the noise, It's done. But a faint thought lingered, one piece still unfinished. Morgan's files hinted at one more accomplice lurking high enough to stay untouched. Among the scattered papers on the wet floor, an envelope had slid from her coat. I picked it up, blood smeared across the seal. Inside lay a single document. Asset backup, Julian Hasker authorized continuation. So it wasn't over. The operation would revive if Hasker slipped away. As EMTs carried Hunter out under plastic, I pocketed the envelope. Rain mixed with tears I didn't bother hiding. Every war left new homework, and this one's final chapter hadn't been written yet. But Harper had her justice, and that was enough for tonight. When sunlight finally broke through the heavy clouds, it didn't look like morning. It looked like relief. For weeks, I hadn't seen real daylight without the tint of grief and guilt shadowing it. Now, after everything, Hunter, Morgan, Delta, and all their ghosts, the air outside felt almost new. News stations ran the files nonstop. Words like corruption, classified smuggling, black market justice splashed across every screen. Morgan's video confession went viral within hours. Her calm admission, I ordered it, played again and again as anchors dissected how deep the scandal ran. For the first time, I didn't need to speak. Truth finally spoke for me. Victor called early that morning. His voice, usually tired, carried something I hadn't heard in years. Peace. It's over, Logan. The task forces have linked everything. Hunter's recorded feed, your audio, the Delta archives. You did it. I didn't answer right away. I just watched sunlight crawl across Harper's photograph on my desk. Her smile faintly cracked from years of folding and carrying. The following weeks moved quietly. The world went back to its rhythm, but mine had changed forever. Hunter's body was buried with no ceremony, listed under his real name. The few Delta men still alive attended in silence, ghosts paying debt to another ghost. Morgan, on the other hand, faced the cameras she used to control. She walked into a courtroom with the same composure she'd used to plan her empire, wearing a gray suit that still tried to look powerful. But when I saw her eyes as the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, the power she clung to simply evaporated. She turned once, looking across the courtroom as if searching for me. I didn't look away. I just gave a short nod, one soldier acknowledging another war finally ended. That day, sitting behind the glass, I realized something Harper must have always known. Justice may need time, but time never forgets what it owes. By the third month, media interest began fading. Victor moved overseas, finally free of ghosts he never deserved to carry. Detective Daphne, somehow alive and hidden through a witness protection loop, sent me a short envelope. No letter inside, just a single USB labeled Legacy Restored. It held videos of survivors from other operations, people Harper's documents had helped free. Every one of them thanked a woman they never met. They called her the voice behind the silence. I sat through every video until night fell, wondering how one person's courage could outlive so much violence. The kids and I started over in a quieter town along the coast, a place with a single diner, a rusted playground, and neighbors who asked no questions. I fixed up an old house with peeling paint, white fences, and too much sea wind. It was imperfect, but so was healing. Some nights my daughter left her window open just to hear the ocean. My son slept with one of Harper's journals under his pillow, and I spent evenings on the porch, staring at the endless horizon that used to remind me of deployment deserts. Now it reminded me of second chances. One evening the mailman delivered an unmarked package. Inside was a small wooden plaque carved with a single phrase, "Route 7 never ends. It just changes roads." No signature, but I didn't need one. That was Daphne's handwriting. And somehow, it made sense. The road we started in blood had ended somewhere better, in truth. A year passed quietly. I founded a small nonprofit under Harper's name, the Hale Initiative. Nothing big, nothing loud. It helps the families of whistleblowers, veterans, anyone crushed by institutions pretending to protect them. The irony didn't escape me. An ex-soldier once trained to guard secrets, now working to keep none. People sometimes asked if I ever feared retaliation. I told them the truth. You can't threaten a man who's already lost everything once. And somehow, Harper's dream had infected the world around her. Other names came forward, unseen heroes who decided hiding wasn't peace, it was slow decay. She'd started something far bigger than both of us. Still, some nights, I felt her beside me. Not haunting, just quiet company. The kind that made silence softer. It wasn't revenge I'd found, it was clarity. In the end, my greatest victory wasn't bringing down some empire. It was learning how to live again without hatred rotting what she sacrificed for. I looked down at her ring, still on a chain around my neck. Rain began again outside, tapping gentle against the porch roof. And in that sound, I heard her voice. Calm, forgiving, finally free. To whoever's listening now, maybe you've lost someone, maybe you've been betrayed, or maybe you've carried a truth that nobody else believed. Just remember, every storm breaks eventually. And sometimes justice walks slow because it refuses to trip over lies on its way. Thank you for watching till the very end. Tell me in the comments, what kind of stories do you want to hear next? Do you like emotional betrayals, military redemption, quiet revenge, or family dramas that feel too real to forget? I want to know what kind hits deepest for you. And if this story stayed with you even a little, press that like button softly, share it with someone who believes truth still matters, and subscribe so you don't miss our next powerful and thrilling revenge story. We'll meet again soon, in another world of heartbreak, justice, and survival. Until then, take care of yourself, hold your truth tight, and let the peace you fought for finally rest.